Hi, welcome to Living the Questions podcast. I am, for the first time, doing a solo episode, and I always feel like there's a part of me that if anyone is familiar with human design, I'm a generator, and something I had learned about that really resonated with me was the need to respond. So I do really well when I'm in dialogue with someone and I can respond to questions or thoughts. It highlights this diving deep philosophical part of me where I just can hear what someone says, and I want to dive deeper into it and ask the questions or share my own, lived experience, and deepen into topics in that way, or shift and see them from different perspectives. It's very fun for me. So the idea of doing a solo episode felt intimidating, feels intimidating, feels a little like what do I respond to? But here I am already having a conversation, and it feels, it feels like I'm talking to someone actually. And maybe that's similar to why I feel so connected to leaving voice notes and things like that. It feels personal, and it feels like I'm able to verbally process, which is something that really connects with me. Another thing, though, that I did to support myself in this solo episode is give myself a prompt in a question to respond to. So that is what I'm going to do today in this solo episode. I am going to dive into a question I'm living into and sort of see where that conversation goes. So the question that I'm currently, one of the many questions I'm currently living into, but the one that I'm going to talk about today is, how do we hold space, or I'll say it for myself, how do I hold space for my own needs and for those of others that I'm in relationship with? How do we, love really well and regard the humans in our lives and have care and compassion for all that is them and their needs, and also regard and love and care and respect and hold space for our own, especially when they may be in what feels like direct opposition, or not, like that there isn't a way for them to like beautifully ride side by side. And this is a big question. This is a big question. And of course, a big challenge of this podcast is that it's about living the questions, and it's not necessarily about needing an answer. It's about living into the answers, that are forever in evolution, that are forever unfolding, that are, you know, we see and learn different things about them over time. Um, we we grow into them, and so it is hard to not have something very specific to say directly to a question. Um, and this is what I'm finding so far in terms of living into it. I think, first of all, having having people pleasing tendencies that I know I've learned about myself that have been protective mechanisms. And, I'm learning about them somatically right now, how they show up. And I had learned very much relationally how they showed up. It is a tricky thing to untangle people pleasing tendencies, when it comes to a desire to care for another and take good care of ourselves. Um, I think for me, the journey with that started as a not wanting to be selfish and misinterpreting loving people as, um, like giving everything I have um, and not recognizing that that meant that I was overriding my own needs and was not paying attention to things that I needed to do to take good care of me. And over time, I've pulled that apart and gotten to see what that looks like and how important it is to take really good care of yourself to be able to, not just to be able to, but definitely if the desire is to want to love well and be there for other people in your life and have the energy to do so, um, then deep care and regard for self is a non-negotiable. Um, which was a hard thing to see at the time from my misinterpretation of fully what love meant. And um, yeah, I see it now where it is a non-negotiable because if we are not resourced in the ways that we're needing to, then we're not actually available. We don't actually have the energy. Um, our offers may not be, most likely are not coming from a genuine place of having space to give it. Um, and and then, that muddles a lot of things. And then we're very much so likely in a place of not loving from where we want to love in the first place. Um, which is, for me, I would like to love in integrity. Um, I would like to love from a place where it is truthful. And and it's interesting to recognize when people pleasing or fawning tendencies come up. And even outside of people pleasing and anxious tendencies that are very closely tied to things like people pleasing and fawning, those things are, they're really, they can be really murky water to be in at first and continually. And so, even sitting in this question now, while if you had asked me, like 5 years ago, the same question, I was untangling it in deep ways then and also different ways. And so at that time, it felt completely opaque to even walk forward. And yet I was still trying to do that. And now I would say it still feels very murky, even with that experience. And so it's not for a lack of saying that, um, it's not saying that nothing changes. So much growth has happened from that first initial decision to walk forward in a different way and see these tendencies in a different way, and question things and start to make different decisions and see what occurred that felt like they were more in alignment with taking good care of myself and loving another simultaneously. Um, and I would say that it is so curious how the lessons continue on and how the practice is through lived experience, which, as a person who likes to be more cerebral sometimes and intellectualize, like my philosophy mind, like I was saying before, I I find um, sometimes that's really tricky to be in. I think even if I wasn't coming from a space of wanting to intellectualize things, I think just as a human, we as human beings having to live through the lesson, having to figure out things through practice is really the only way. And um, I would say that that's that can be a really beautiful thing, ultimately. And I would say that it feels really human to feel like that is a really frustrating thing and a really scary thing and a really painful thing sometimes to have be the way that we learn as humans. And it's a long route. It's not a short way. And so that like opaqueness turning into more of like a fog where I can start to see things a bit more, um, or just like murky water that feels a little bit clearer. It's slow. It's a slow game. And I'm remembering, I feel like I have to constantly remind myself that there's no, right, like we're living the questions. This is why this podcast is named this. Um, there is not really the arrival point. There are arrival points over time. They all are connected. They all continue on. And I think that, yeah, for a while I was in a space of feeling like, okay, I just need to do this and then we'll get here. And then whew, deep breath. Um, and yeah, I think I'm recognizing through growth journey, through being in the constant awareness of my growth journey and choosing to be there. It is, it's different terrain all the time. There's peaks and valleys. And that's not necessarily to say that like when we reach the peak, it is this like ultimate feeling of greatness. It might be like catching our breath and like actually having a moment to catch our breath. And then, it continues on. And maybe some of those dips down aren't as as low, and some of those climbs aren't as steep over the course of time. And maybe they are again. And I think it's hard to remember that, at least in my experience. It feels hard to remember that is sort of what lived experience has shown so far. When we're in those times where it's everything feels shaky and everything feels uncertain, um and life feels, yeah, hard. um yeah, those moments when we're really in it and when we're really deciding to not bypass it and actually go through it and feel the things that life is bringing to the surface. Those moments are really difficult to just, you know, be okay living the questions. And so I just want to hold deep space for that. Yeah, big, big space for the fact that it's tricky. Um, it's tricky to navigate life as a human and growth as a human, and to be in these really deep and intimate questions with ourselves and parsing things out, um, and the practice, uh, being through lived experience means that it's not just us witnessing it. It does mean that it will be witnessed externally in some way, shape, or form, and to take really deep care of ourselves within that, which goes back to this question, right? Of like, it is so important to hold space for our needs, to take really good care of ourselves, especially in relationship. Any, like, we're always in relationship. We're in relationship to everything around us. Um, and yeah, and I've done some really beautiful relational leadership work and mentorship work with my wonderful friend and sweet, sweet mentor, James Olivia. And I'm so grateful for getting to continue to come back to what feels like um, pillars of humanization, pillars of, and it's beyond just humans. And in this conversation, if we're saying like holding space for ourselves and for another human, I will leave it at relating on the human level at the moment. But yeah, these pillars feel so important to me to keep coming back to, which is skills of relating. And so one of those skills of relating which incorporates all of the skills of relating, I'm recognizing, is unconditional positive regard. And so the skills of relating are empathy, empathic listening, congruence, and unconditional positive regard. And unconditional positive regard is one of the harder skills um, to embody. It means that we are deeply that we are congruent, that we are presenting with empathy, truly, which includes then from there empathic listening. And it means that in all of that, we're regarding ourselves and our humanity and simultaneously regarding the humanity of the other person. Simultaneously, that is happening. So the question that I'm living into is that it's like, how can I live in UPR, unconditional positive regard? How can I live in that way with that as like a tenant, really? Um, and when am I thinking I am? And truly, what I'm doing is holding another person in high regard and not realizing that I've left myself elsewhere. I'm not even present in this space because I have not brought myself forward out of fear, out of, worry, out of a lot of things. I've noticed, especially when my needs, like even getting to know what my needs are and vocalizing that to myself has been a practice. Um, and I find that when my needs feel like they are, um, you know, don't feel just kind in words. So, like, if they feel like, to me, in my own head, if they feel like they are asking someone else to do something differently, or if they're yeah, it's so tricky. It's so interesting. Even in my brain right now, it's like almost like doing the protective thing, even trying to describe it. Um, but I think that I have such an awareness of feeling like I don't want another person to feel that they need to take care of my needs, and I'm afraid that saying them out loud sometimes is going to sound like I'm putting that on someone else. And that's my thing that I'm realizing I'm working with. Um, is that I think that that's the block that holds me back from sharing, from actually getting to state my needs to another person, that it feels effortless to be able to hear someone else's need and to figure out any way to show up for that. And within that, there's other lessons of boundaries and capacity and being able to share those honestly. Um, And then the whole other level of this, how do I hold space for myself simultaneously? How do I make sure that I'm showing up regarding myself when I'm showing up regarding you as well? Because also that's required for me to actually genuinely like have regard for what you have and be giving generously from, you know, from a place where it's not depleted, which is most loving to me and to you. Yeah. I mean, whew, there's just like such bigness there um to lean into. And so yeah, that's what the question has looked like for me so far to live into, is this space of recognizing how far I've come with certain things where waters feel murky still, big questions that continue to come up within this question, and the layers of it that are so nuanced and so human and make so much sense, and to why there are the blocks that there are, and create so much compassion when I navigate things like this in my own life, it just continuously creates wells of compassion for other humans for me. Um, just, there's just so much to being a human. There's so many layers to to just living day to day. And when we're actually, sitting with the pieces of it, when we're in the awareness of just how much is going on that we might even not be thinking about, or feeling into somatically in our bodies, there's a lot going on in any given day of life. And that's just baseline, let alone the other things that are happening in our life or in the world, all around us. So there's just, so yeah, wells of compassion. So yeah, compassion for others, compassion for self, so important, so deeply important. And my dear friend had pointed this beautiful thing, out to me where when I was talking about this over, the fall, I was camping with my friend in Big Sur, which is just so beautifully medicinal. Redwood trees are just, speak to my soul. And our campsite just happened to be right next to a stream. And my favorite thing ever to do is that if I see a stream of water, I immediately need to, like, if I'm not barefoot already, take my socks and shoes off and put my feet in the water. It doesn't even matter what time of year it is. It could be freezing. I'll be there for a couple seconds, but I just need to do it. It just feels so magical. So to have this babbling brook stream with these big redwoods, anyway, I digress. Just magic to me and my soul. But on this trip, I was getting to talk to my dear friend, um, a little bit about, just this question that I'm living into in maybe different words at the time. But yeah, like it was still the same thread. And she pointed out this really beautiful thing where she was she was saying, I, you know, like I hear what you're saying, but what I'm picturing because of what I'm hearing you say is that you are saying, like, I can hold space for others. I can hold, love and deep care for other people and myself at the same time. And so, for anyone listening just on audio, I'm holding two hands, like matched, as if they're, like a balance system and they're evened out. And so that was how I was saying I wanted, you know, I know that I can do this. That's how I was saying I felt was possible. And she then said, but what's actually happening is you're saying, I can totally hold both. And so what she did with her hands and what I'm doing with my hands right now is that my side is all the way low and the other side, the care for others, was way higher, thinking that they're balanced, thinking I'm doing it simultaneously, and it's off kilter. Um, and so, what does it look like to actually come back into balance, and get curious about what holds me there, and also get curious about that deep desire to have both and to know that both are possible, and also that this off balance is incongruence, is letting me know that I am not in a space of congruence, that it's letting me know what I want, which is really powerful information. And it's also letting me know that, that it's great to want to be there, and to get there, I need to let myself know that I'm not there right now, and that that's okay, and that isn't a failure, and that isn't something that is, yeah, I don't need to be harder on myself about that right now. I don't need to rush to get to a place that I'm discovering over time. I just get to see, oh, okay, well, I know where I want to go, and I'm seeing where I'm out of balance. if I'm congruent, where am I actually? And having that dialogue with myself every day, even. Not to like an exhaustive point, just in a human relating to self point. Yeah, and so that's what living into that question currently looks like for me. I feel like what would be really cool is to circle back on this in maybe a handful of months and continue to revisit this question and see how I'm further living into it. I would also love to hear how, if this is a question that resonates for you, how you're living into this question, how you have lived into this question, maybe how you would like to live into this question, you know, in the way that I was saying, I have this want and I'm also not there yet. That's a really, you know, that could be a really powerful conversation. So I would love to hear where, you know, what anyone has as they're listening to this first solo podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for holding space. These solo podcasts are feeling like my voice notes to whoever finds them. And there's something really powerful about that. It feels like like my heart has such a love for old school snail mail love letters. And yeah, this feels like getting to do that in voice form a bit, which is really special. So the first of hopefully many conversations here. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this space. Thank you for being you and for being here. And here's to wherever you find yourself. May it be held with sweetness and gentleness and deep regard and lots and lots and lots of compassion and love. I'm sending all of that your way. And yeah, I will put lots of other information in the show notes for other resources and things if they resonate for you. And I look forward to getting to speak to you again the next time.